If you find yourself doing more marketing between you and your team, or just you doing more marketing than you have a year ago, if you're doing more ads, more funnels, more posts, more everything, and it's not equal to the amount of revenue, then you're in the right place. This episode's for you. I am Kendra Losi, and this is marketing for people like us. If you're joining live, say hello in the comments. I'd love to know you're here. And if you're tuning in later, by all means, let me know who you are, that you're watching, and where you're at. That would be awesome. I read all the comments, and I'd love to hear from you. So here's what we're talking about today. When you are increasing everything and your marketing doesn't work, it's not because your marketing is bad. It's not because you're doing the wrong things. It's not because you hate marketing and sometimes even marketers. It's usually because your marketing activity is not automatically a revenue system. One does not equal the other. It only becomes a revenue system, or that support for your revenue, when it's intentional, when your marketing is aligned. And that's what we're talking about. So here's the thing. I keep talking to more and more business owners, and this is what I keep hearing. People are busy. They're doing so many things, they're overwhelmed. And sometimes they just stop. They're like, I am done. This marketing thing's not going to work for me. I'm tapping out. But then there's the people on the other side who are doing everything. They're doing everything they're told to be doing. They're posting on social media more than ever. They've hired someone for social media. They're running ads. They're sending newsletters. They're blogging. They're creating funnels. They're doing video. They're doing all of the things. But their revenue hasn't moved, or it's shifted just a little bit. And so a lot of times what they start doing, these, people in charge of revenue for their business, these business owners, they decide. The typical conclusions that they come to are like, marketing isn't working, or we need to add another channel. Maybe we're not doing enough. We need to run more ads. We need to push harder, because logically, if you start doing more, you'll see different results, but more doesn't always equal the same result. More doesn't always equal more. So if you assume that you're going to do more, but what you're doing already isn't working, a lot of times you're just piling more on top of a shaky foundation. And that's the trap. Is how do you know if your foundation's strong? How do you know if you're responsible for revenue and you have your eye on so many different things in your business or your team, marketing not working becomes your thing to solve. It feels like something that you need to solve right away. And I've seen people, I've been laid off 6 times. So I've definitely seen businesses of all sizes just decide to it's the marketers that aren't working. We need new people. We need a new team. We need this. We need that. And sometimes you're right. Sometimes you do need a new team. Sometimes you don't have the right person. But sometimes it's not the team. Sometimes it's not the effort. It's not the effort that goes into it. It's how the effort is applied. When I was I use my university experience a lot because I have spent probably about 15 plus, more than that, almost 20 years in higher ed, both as a consultant, a marketing consultant, and as a marketing VP. And one of the things that we found is that we were always competing against organizations with bigger budgets. If we had a couple $1 million budget, our competitor had $1 billion global budget. And sometimes as a small business owner, you're not talking about millions of dollars. You're talking about, 100,000, couple thousand, whatever your budget is. It always feels like someone's doing more, outspending you. But there is a way to show up intentionally where you can make your marketing support your revenue and become an intentional part of your revenue system. But in order to do that, you need to break this pattern. And here's the pattern that I see repeatedly. The pattern is, yes, people are doing more marketing, but it's not connected. It's not connecting to who actually is buying. It's not connecting to their target audience. It's not connecting to how that target audience is deciding whether or not to buy. They don't understand the value. They might not know who you are because you're trying to tell them too many things, too many different ways, too many options. Let's talk about a couple examples, because that disconnect between marketing and revenue and marketing and business goals is what I see, and it creates tension. And that's where everything I'm talking about keeps getting lost. So here's 2 examples of what I've seen. See if any of these sound familiar, sound like you or your business. The first was an insurance firm that I worked with. And when I came in, they were doing social media and they had a consistent social media presence. Activity was great. They were posting consistently. They were doing the things, checking the boxes that they should be doing, right? But here's the thing. They had given the social media to an intern. Nothing wrong with that. But the intern didn't understand the business goals, didn't understand the audience, wasn't given the other information they needed. And so they were posting GIFs. They were posting jokes. There'd be like Friday afternoon polls about what you were doing that weekend. This was an insurance company for businesses, for large businesses. They were not talking to the right audience. They didn't address real questions, real ideas, real concerns, real challenges people had about their insurance for their business. And it didn't match the mindset of the buyers, the decision makers. Why would you trust your business insurance, like when you need it and your business is struggling and you have something happening? Why would you trust this insurance company that was busy posting, pizza jokes and nothing else? You know nothing about them other than they're entertaining and funny. Great, that's a start. But that didn't answer anything that the business owners would need when it came to insurance and risk assessment, understanding the mindset of people when they actually need insurance for their business. So as a result, their marketing efforts kept going up. Like, okay, well, we're posting on social media. That's not working organically. Let's add some paid media into it. And so we're taking more marketing resources, time, energy, money for ads, and all of those things. And the revenue wasn't moving the needle. Nothing was changing when it came to their revenue. And so in their mind, they were like, well, marketing doesn't work. And they had brought me in to just do an assessment of it and to see what we could do. And, there were some easy fixes that they were able to make right away that made a big difference. Another example is a law firm that I worked with in the past. And their situation was a little bit different. As a smaller law firm, they were very customer focused and focused on their clients. And everyone in the organization was doing some form of marketing, whether it was newsletters, blog posts, speaking engagements, hosting events, attending events, networking, social media. The team was busy. Everyone was busy. And so everyone had their fingers in marketing, but there was no clear leadership. And so basically everyone was going all over at once, right? Like everyone was pointing in different directions and nothing was aligned. And it was a little chaotic and confusing because sometimes they would step on each other's toes as far as who was responsible for what, or one person would be talking about this thing over here and another person would be talking about this thing over here. And there was tension created from the chaos and confusion, and everyone was getting frustrated and results weren't coming in to equal that effort. So the bigger problems underneath there were that there were no clear systems. Everyone was inventing something every single time, so they were working inefficiently. There was no intention beyond we were blogging because we know we need to blog. We were on social media because firms need to be on social media. Is TikTok right for their audience? They didn't know. They didn't, person running TikTok was different than the person talking to Instagram. Like it just didn't fit. They weren't focused on their audience, their behavior, their goal, and the business goals. They weren't focused on what their audience needed either. And so we discovered a couple different things that people were talking to different audiences. Marketing was reaching people who couldn't afford their services. Their audience was unsure about their value. And all of that activity, it's so heartbreaking to see. All of that activity and energy of people thinking they're working towards the same goals was unaligned. And so the results were not equaling the effort. When we look at these examples, there's a pattern underneath that's really clear. And it's because their marketing tactics weren't anchored to a clear strategy that supported the business goals, that supported their audience. It wasn't anchored to who their buyer was, who their target audience was, what they need, what they value, when they decide, what they decide, how they trust, what questions they have. They might have been visible, but there was nothing beyond that. And so the activity went up while the intention and the strategy just kept getting. And from the outside, you wouldn't know it. From the outside, their marketing looked successful. It looked like they were doing so many different things. They were everywhere. And this is something that I see a lot in competitive analysis. And when I teach social media, when I teach marketing, students are always surprised. I created a project for students to go down to the local farmers market. I had arranged ahead of time with businesses down there, and I got the students down there and they observed, they each picked their companies they were going to observe, and they picked these local companies and local businesses. And they went in thinking, what are we going to be able to suggest to them? But when they observed, when they interviewed the businesses, and when they looked at the booths and when they looked at their websites and looked at the different things, they were blown away by the basic things these businesses weren't doing. But they were so busy showing up and spending their time and resources and energy showing up at those farmers markets and doing the things that they thought they needed to be doing. But there were so many basic things that they weren't doing that could have made their presence, their value even more. So when we look at this pattern, the visibility was there, the activity was there. Honestly, people's good intentions were there. But behind it, there was typically no focus, nothing aligned with goals. A lot of times there's no marketing leadership and managing the strategy and looking at what metrics are we tracking? Does this make sense? Kind of managing those efforts and overseeing them. And it makes a big difference. And there is an underlying belief. So that's the pattern I see. Let's talk about the underlying belief. There's an underlying belief that more marketing is going to equal more money. More marketing is going to equal more revenue. Once again, I hear it all the time. Oh, we need ads. We need ads. The marketing we're doing is not working. We're doing all these things. We're showing up on social media. We're doing this. We're doing that. We need ads. Ads is going to solve our problem. Or we need a funnel. If we have a funnel and we build a lead magnet and people do these things, they're going to work out. And the reality is that sometimes yes, sometimes no. But what's the reason behind it? What's the intention? What's the goal? How can you do this in a way that's not going to create more chaos, but actually create more intention? Sometimes more is the answer. Sometimes you do need more, but only when it aligns with your foundation, with your business, with your audience. So you're like, okay, cool, Kendra. What's this foundation? It doesn't sound as sexy or as fun as a new funnel or running ads. It doesn't sound as easy as running ads. Can't I just throw more money at the problem? Sure, if you have it, but there's a way to be smarter about it. Why would you spend more money if you don't need to? Why would you spend more money needlessly if you can say, okay, here's the things that are going to move the needle, or here's the things that when I have these in place, I can do X, Y, Z. So at the very base level of building your foundation, a strong foundation, what are your business goals? What are your marketing goals? Who is your audience? Who are you talking to? Because, dear God, you're not talking to everybody. You are 100% not talking to everybody. What is your service? What's your product? What's your offer? What are you selling? How do you communicate that value clearly? And how do your customers, how do your clients, how do they decide to work with you? What are the things they care about? And you build your marketing intentionally around those things. You want to make sure each marketing tactic has a reason why, has a goal in your business that it supports, and that you're measuring the right things to support that. Because you might not be measuring even the things that matter. Just like a lot of people might be doing things that aren't going to move the needle as quickly as some of these other things. So what happens without that foundation? You get more activity, you get more people involved, you get more budget, you get more tools, you get more confusion, you get more chaos, or you simply stop. And like, I don't need marketing. Marketing's not for me. I've tried it once and it didn't work. But with all of that, you don't get anything predictable. And it's exhausting. That's when you get people waking up in the middle of the night trying to figure out how to grow their business or what they can do, or coming up with different crazy ideas, which sometimes work, sometimes don't. But you don't have the peace of mind and the confidence that your business is not built on guessing. And so it's really, really important to understand that marketing is not about the effort. It's not about the output or how busy people are doing marketing. It's about how it's built. Marketing should not feel like you're pushing a boulder uphill every single week. So here's a way to look at it and something to remember. Marketing alone, marketing as an activity, is not a revenue system. It can become a part of your revenue system when it's intentional, when it's designed for your business, when it's designed for your goals, your resources, your audience, not when it's built around things that people tell you you should be doing. Activity and busy doing marketing stuff is not a black hole. That's not the goal. Being intentional is. Working smarter is. Approaching marketing in a smarter way is. So if you're sitting there listening and you're like, okay, cool, Kendra, that sounds great. How do I get started? Between now and the next episode, what I'd like you to do is take one marketing activity that you or your team or your VAs or whoever is doing. And I want you to take a deep look at it and ask, are we doing it because we should be doing it? Or are we doing it because it is directly tied to one of our business goals? It directly is tied to our growth. It is intentional, and how we approach it is intentional. Just take a look at one thing. Start there. And if you want to move faster, or if you want to think more clearly about your marketing, I do have a new session called Your Next Right Move. And it's an assessment to help diagnose what you're doing now and what you can do. What's that next right move you can make so that your marketing is intentional and aligned with your revenue goals and business goals. Till next time, I'm Kendra Losey, and this is Marketing for People Like Us. Thanks for joining.